Hello.
Hello. Małgorzata Sady, writer, filmographer, educator, and translator is with us today. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
For inviting me.
We would like to talk with you about quite a few things regarding filmography and education, but first I would like to start by asking you about your professional background.
Well, it's quite difficult to say. I graduated from English department, contemporary literature, poetry, but it happened by accident. I studied this philology because I wanted to become a film director, and in those days you couldn't start at film school without having a degree from whatever, it didn't matter which department. And so it happened by accident. I studied English because I started learning English at the age of 8, so for me it was very easy. And I benefited quite a lot from these studies because at that time I was already working with art gallery as an artist as well as a translator. So I had so many contacts with artists, writers, because of knowing English so well and having these connections. In those days we had quite a few teachers from England and America at the university, and they were very different from Polish teachers. They were very informal and friendly, and they started inviting me to England, and that's how it went. I never went to film school, but that's another story.
Well, it is interesting to know that it had to start with something else and it was accidental, as you are saying. And how did you end up getting to write something and make your books, translate things, and end up in film industry anyway without the degree?
Well, you don't need a degree. You need knowledge, you need skill, probably talent for it, not to be too modest. Yeah, so that's it, and your interest. If you want to pursue something, you do it. A degree is very good to have a degree because studying develops your mind, develops your thinking, gives you another perspective, but you don't have to study something. You don't study to be a poet, for instance. And I do write poetry. So, but translating, yes, was related to my studies, but art, my art practice, no. Mm-hmm. It's just a mental disposition, and just the need to do it. And I was very lucky because my grandmother was a teacher and she was running a theater company. So my first experience as an actor was at the age of 3. I was in her play and I was a snowflake, and it was so magic. I do remember it. It was so magical. I just couldn't stop, and that it continued. I had very interesting friends and we were doing things together. I mean, theater performances that lasted for 24 hours, for instance. We were making films. So that's how it went. And I believe that one can do anything one feels like doing, and that's it.
I like to think this way as well. I mean, it gives me some hope for the future of doing things. And here we are right now at Polish-Japanese. How did you end up teaching here?
That's like everything else in my life, it's just a coincidence. Where should I begin? I was a friend of French contemporary Stephen Tennyson, who were avant-garde filmmakers. They were. It was also painting, graphic art, theater, opera, publishing, writing, poetry, philosophy. So we were friends for 10 years of the last 10 years of their lives. And then they shared with me their world. And then when they died, which was 1988, I thought, now it's my turn to say thank you to them. And saying thank you to them was writing about them, was curating exhibitions, was translating texts, and sharing my experience of their work with others. And then I was working also in London in their archive, and I knew what was the content of the archive. among other things, they wanted to publish actually it was supposed to be first translation of Witkacy into English. And 2 books were ready for publication. There were some drawings, translations, obviously, but it never happened. And I was thinking with my friend, who is Witkacy fan or maniac, almost maniac, well, he's in love with Witkacy, how to publish this book. And I met Ewa Sotalecka a long time ago at theatre festival, so I knew about her, and I thought, okay, I should propose it to her. So we met, and she immediately said yes. And with students, we made that book, which got the certificate of typographic excellence, and there was a beautiful story around it. But the book was finished, and I was asked, would you like to give lectures at our school? And I said, no way, because I travel so much, I have all kinds of things on my plate, no way. And they said, okay, we adapt to your schedule. So I said, fine, and that's how it happened. Must have been 5 years ago.
This is a great story regardless. And you brought up the project that you were doing a long time ago, and what things are you going through? What are you doing right now?
The major one is 1-year project financed by Norwegian funds, and that's collaboration between Mazowian Museum in Płock and Kunstbanken Art Center, Contemporary Art Center in Norway. And this project lasts for a year. It started in April, and I curated, and that's a big project. Lots of money involved. There are exhibitions. There are also conferences, workshops, publications, festivals, maybe something else. And it happens over the years, so it's quite a lot. And it's the theme is stories, full stop. The world is more complicated than the truth about it. So stories, because it's such an open subject and people love story, everything is a story, so not to limit artists with their proposals. And the second part is actually quotation from Stefan Temesson, because the whole thing is under patronage of the Temessons. And the reason is that I curated a permanent exhibition at the Mazowian Museum, which opened a year and a half ago, and that was the way of persuade the museum to be involved in the project. But it's a very good idea to involve the Temessons in that. And there are some works which are commissioned especially for that that project, because I didn't want only have only the events that happen and there is nothing left apart from what is left in our hearts and minds, etc., memory. So there are some works which are commissioned, and there would be something interesting. There are multimedia works, installations, video essay, as well as there's interactive artificial intelligence, big work. So
I have to ask, because, well, you brought up new multimedia projects. How do you feel about the evolvement of art field, film field, with the addition and appearance of these new technologies?
It's fantastic that there are new technologies, because if you have a new tool, you do new things, obviously, because it allows you to. The downside is overuse of it, because it's so easy to work, I mean, easy and difficult to work with new technologies. And it's very important that you need to know the message that you want to convey, not the costume. And it's very often like it's people just are left on this superficial level, and that's, but obviously, yes.
I feel like with the addition of the new tools, there are a lot of questions that come from students, for example, as to why they have to go through a lot of lectures on film history, art history. Why do you find it beneficial for students? It's quite an obvious question, but it would be interesting to hear.
I think that one should know what happened in the past. It's out of respect, and just to widen your knowledge. And then because you live in a certain context of current time, present time, and you actually often don't know what are the roots, what are the connections, and it's for better understanding. And what I noticed that when I was talking to students about history of film, and I was showing them examples of films that were made 100 years ago, 90 years ago, 80 years ago, and these films feel very contemporary, and not even in the way of thinking, but in the way of using technology. Obviously, it was analog, and then students learn about certain techniques they had no idea about, and they started using them in their work. And so I think, and it's also fun to
I agree. Yes,
to have all that, and it's,
there are a lot of things that we potentially wouldn't know from any other place, because the history is so rich. It can be talked about for hours and hours long.
And also, when I teach, I just focus not on the mainstream. I focus on experiments, on things that you wouldn't have learned normally, because they are hidden somewhere in these deep alleys.
I think this is a great approach, because, well, general information can be easily scouted online. You don't need to look much for it.
And then I also noticed that some people got interested and they explored some of these areas themselves, because for me it's like opening the door. You're unwelcome, you go there, you don't have to.
That's a very nice point. Yeah, I agree, because some people might not end up being interested. But for
that's obvious.
For you, what in the film excited you in the beginning? Why did you choose that you're gonna go in this area of art?
It's magic. It's beautiful, and also you use because it's like music for me, in a sense, because it goes into different areas of art. Everything is there, right?
Absolutely.
You have text, you have text being spoken, performed, you have image, you have sound, and you play with all that. And why I mean, since you are a child, one is fascinated by films. It's obvious, and then you lose it. I mean, you lose it. Some people lose it, and also you look for different things in films. Some people look for stories. Some people look for emotional upheaval. But I love films. I can watch them. Now it's film festival which finished in Warsaw, Dogs Against Gravity, and Krakow Film Festival, and I have access because I'm a member of Polish Filmmakers Association, and they give you all these privileges. So I just watch films all the time.
It is also that with the internet, it is so easy to access things, and it's so easy to watch whatever you can and cannot even imagine.
That is true, but I never watch films on the computer. I mean, at least I bought projector, 4 meters high walls, white walls in my flat, and good sound equipment. So I just refuse to watch films because it's again out of respect, because somebody made the film, right? And it's meant to be shown in certain conditions.
So you need a full immersive experience for it.
It has to be like that. Because, even when you think how much time people spend on post-production, will you see it in the computer? No way.
That's such a great point. I wouldn't say that I thought about it too much, but it might be a great way to get away from this fast content that we're very exposed to get yourself into a good, big space, comfortable position, and enjoy the movie the way it was intended.
Yeah. And also you're completely immersed in it, because you don't leave the room. It's just, and it's dark, and there are other people next to you. All that contributes to the experience.
You love the experience of it, yeah.
Yes.
Can see that. We are right now having graduation seminars, preparing for writing the thesis, and we talked about benefits in general for students, but how do you think those kind of lectures benefit our writing of the diploma project?
I mean, what I do, I really like to expand your way of thinking, expand your experience. And even if you don't use it directly in your work, you just learn another language. And you think you learn that there are other ways of looking at things, because just if it's one-to-one, it's not enough. You can see it from one certain angle, and then another angle, and then another angle. As the Stefan Tennyson said, the world is more complicated than our truths about it. It's not as simple. So just open your mind and also enjoy it, because enjoyment is the basis.
Most definitely.
Never restriction, it's just freedom.
I would like to close up by asking you, what kind of advice would you give to young people who are into film, who are into the idea and this magic that you were describing? How should they approach film and start in the, I don't want to say industry, but in art, this art? Industry is a difficult question. I don't want to go that way, yeah.
And it's just explore. You need to know what the message is you want to convey. It can be a message which is rational, like comments on weather. I mean, it's just an example. But it can be very poetic, so kind of subconscious. But you need to know where you are going with it. I mean, not exactly, but just like you have a horizon, and on the horizon you have a certain point, and you are going there, and be open to accidents on the way, but never be fixated. I want to achieve exactly that. Just explore what happens on the way, and if it's your vocation, you will get there. And don't get disappointed. Don't be afraid of mistakes. Don't be afraid of anything. Just trust yourself.
Totally.
And if you don't trust yourself completely, have a good friend who also trusts you. Just in crisis moment, you will get support.
With how diverse the area of film is, I feel like it is very important that you're able to adapt to different things. You're not stuck on one thing. So that is really, really great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Really appreciate you being here.
That was mutual.
Thank you.
That's very nice.
Thank you. Yeah.